This Friday is National Bike to Work Day. And with the weather being warmer, hopefully here to stay, you're going to be seeing a lot more cyclists on the roads and sidewalks out there in West Michigan. What's the law say about cyclists, the rules of the road, and if there's an injury between, say, an automobile and a bicyclist? Well, for that, we turn to Tom Sinas from Sinas James Law Firm. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Todd. How are you?
I'm doing well. Are there rules, basic rules that apply to drivers? Let's start with the people in the car when it comes to cyclists.
Well, I'm glad you're bringing this up right now because you're right. It's National Bike to Work Day, but it's also a good time to reflect on the fact that over the last few years, they have been deadly for cyclists and pedestrians. Since the start of the pandemic, fatalities and injuries for cyclists and pedestrians have gotten worse, not better. So let's start with your question, because hopefully this is a way where we can prevent some of that from happening. The general rule that I think people should remember is that drivers should expect to see bicyclists on the roadway. Cyclists have a right to drive their bikes on the road. Some people, I think, say, well, why aren't the bikes on the sidewalk? Or why aren't they just limited to the bike lane? Well, yes, they may be able to drive on the sidewalk and, of course, in a bike lane, but they don't have to. They have a right to use the roadway. So motorists should expect to see cyclists and be prepared to deal safely with them. Speaking of safety and some specific rules, we've had some changes in Michigan law in the last few years. Back in around 2018, we actually passed a statewide law regarding passing of cyclists when a motorist passes a cyclist. And the statute says that the driver of a motor vehicle overtaking a bicycle proceeding in the same direction shall pass at a safe distance of at least 3 feet to the left of the bicycle, or if it is impracticable to pass the bicycle at a distance of 3 feet to the left, at a safe distance to the left of the bicycle and at a safe speed. So the idea there is give them 3 feet, at least 3 feet. Now, under Grand Rapids ordinances, we have an actually broader rule. We have a rule that says you should give cyclists 5 feet when you're passing a cyclist. So the basic concept here is not only should you expect to see them, but when you are driving and you're preparing to pass one of them, be sure to give them that extra safe room as you're passing.
It's good to know, because I can't tell you how many times I've heard someone say, "Why are they on the road? Why aren't they on the sidewalk? They're in my lane." But well, they have a right to be in that lane because they have a right to the road, just like the cars do. So that's the people driving the cars. What about cyclists? Are there any special rules for them?
There are a bunch of them, but a few easy ones to remember is that bicyclists generally are supposed to be riding a reasonably close to the right curb. Now, they don't have to all the time. There are certain exceptions for when a cyclist doesn't have to be riding as close to the right hand curb as they can reasonably. So like if they're preparing to pass another bicycle, or they're preparing to turn left, or if there are hazards in the way, but generally riding reasonably close to the right hand curb. Bicycles are allowed to drive on sidewalks. Doesn't mean they have to drive on sidewalks, but they are allowed to. But when they do, they're required to yield the right of way to pedestrians, and they're required to give an audible signal before overtaking or passing a pedestrian. Now, as you know, a lot of cyclists ride together, and we have a rule under Michigan state statute that says that cyclists cannot ride more than 2 abreast, meaning no more than 2 cyclists next to one another. And then there are some other rules regarding hand signaling and riding a bicycle at night, et cetera. But those are some of the most, I think, basic safety rules. And they're rules that we have as part of our state law. So these apply, of course, to cyclists here, but all around the state as well.
You mentioned that the data say that there are more fatalities, more injuries with pedestrians and cyclists. What happens if a cyclist is injured by a car?
Really important question, because the moment that happens, if a cyclist is injured by a car, the cyclist then is entitled to auto no-fault benefits. In order to be entitled to auto no-fault benefits, the victim has to be involved with a motor vehicle. So if a cyclist injures themselves on their own or hits another cyclist, there would be no auto no-fault benefit. But to your question, if they're injured as a result of a motor vehicle, a car, then they are entitled to no-fault benefits. And as we've talked about many times, the most important form of no-fault benefits is that medical expense coverage. And when a cyclist is injured, the first place they're going to look to is their own auto no-fault insurance, meaning whatever they purchased in their name to cover their cars, even though they're on their bike at the time of the crash. which makes it all the more important for cyclists to think about choosing that unlimited no-fault coverage option, the one that does not have an arbitrary cap on their no-fault benefits for medical expense coverage. Because if they're injured in an accident with a car, they, at that point, of course, will want to have access to the most amount of medical expense coverage that they can. And they can make that happen by choosing the unlimited coverage on their own policy. If a cyclist does not have their own auto insurance coverage, under the changes to the no-fault law, now the cyclist has to seek their benefits through what's called the Michigan Assigned Claims Plan. And what's significant about that is that when they end up there, they will find their medical expense benefits under our new law capped at $250,000. So that's a really good reason why cyclists should think about what they do on their own cars. And if they don't have their own auto insurance, then they should be mindful that they very well may end up in a situation where they have a capped medical expense benefit because of the changes to the auto insurance law back in 2019.
I'm sure that information is very pertinent for someone watching right now to know that. And of course, you have all of the information. And if someone is living that right now, maybe they have been recently in an automobile bicycle accident, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, they can find our law firm in a couple of places, actually. They can find us at sinusdramus.com. We also have a website, michiganbicyclelaw.com, devoted exclusively to cyclists. They can find us by email at info@sinusdramus.com or on the phone at 616-301-3333.